Hello, fall, and let's get started with painting some pumpkins for your decor. This is a dollar store pumpkin, and I absolutely hate how this doesn't go with anything in my indoor decor, and it doesn't match with any color themes I usually use throughout the year. So what I like to do is paint my foam pumpkins in order to match the color palette that I want for that year, or sometimes I even make them a bit of a neutral or use metallic tones so that way I can break it out every year and just use it a little bit differently. But I definitely had a lot of people asking questions about how I have transformed especially foam pumpkins, since you can't spray paint these or use just any paint on them since the foam won't allow for that. Just take a look at that green stem. That's the main thing that has got to change with this pumpkin in order to make it work. So there's a lot of different ways of course approaching decorating a pumpkin like this. So what I'm going to do is show you how I do my floral design today. And you can definitely change up the designs and look up some inspiration on Google or Pinterest for different kind of abstract patterns or bouquets, or just take a look at the colors you want to incorporate in your house. And I really love how the stem's removable with these, because then you can also buy some fake flowers or fake leaves and attach it to this pumpkin as well. And I did a little bit of shopping and grabbed some metallic markers while I was also at the dollar store. You can also grab them from any office supply store, but the markers that are at the dollar store actually work really well on top of acrylic paint. You can also grab chalk markers or oil-based Sharpies as well in order to use them for this project. And what you want to do is just remove the stem for now. We can go back and paint that in and replace it at the end, especially if you're planning on getting into flowers or leaves to add to it. And just leave your markers off to the side, because we're going to use them for sketching and drawing purposes in our design, so just like on this one. For brushes, I just have flats and rounds for this project, so you can just grab some of the medium size. And for color suggestions, you just want to find colors that you want to use in your palette and just limit them to maybe 5 color tones, and maybe 2 for the leaves, 4 for the flowers, and just keep in mind that you can also pick one more color for polka dots. And we're just going to go ahead and start with drawing on the designs after I remove the stem with my chalk marker, so that way you can clearly see where my circles are going to be, especially since I'm planning on doing that navy tone, which is going to be super dark. So everywhere you see a circle is where I'm going to put an abstract flower. And then as soon as I have all my circles drawn, I'm just going to pick up my flat brush, mix a little bit of navy and black together, and I'm just going to start base coating all that's orange on the outside of those circles. So the white will make it a lot easier to see where you don't want to paint in your background tones. And I'm just going to keep churning it and flipping it over and giving it about 2 to 4 minutes for churns, so that way I can do the bottom and the top. So I'm going to paint the whole pumpkin, not just one side. Of course, if you like a solid black, you could have just done black, but I rarely do pure blacks. And after you're done letting it dry, or using a blow gun, or letting it air dry underneath a fan, you just want to grab your flat brush and start base coating the flowers with some of those color tones from your palette that you've chosen. So for me, I think I'm going to be doing a lot of pastel tones, which are lavenders, light blues, pink blush tones, cream colors. You just want to do one at a time and give it a good solid coat before moving on to another flower. And I'm not concerned about doing the petals, but I am twirling my brush so that way I can start building up a texture that would support having multiple petals. And there's some pinks and blushes that I'm mixing, so I'm going to use quite a lot of white in order to base coat my flowers, but the white also kind of acts like a primer and helps me cover up the orange a lot better than just using some colors by themselves, because some colors like yellow can be super transparent. So you definitely, if you have any yellow flowers or a color that seems like it's not coating too well, you might want to consider adding white to it before base coating any of your flowers. I'm just also filling in a few to be like berries and fruits, so you can do apples, cranberries, hollyberries. You can even leave some orange to look like little mandarins and oranges, so you can definitely have some sweet orange and spices going on in your piece. And then you want to also base coat your stem with a little bit of white paint and let that dry to the side after you completely coat it. You can paint your stem any color you like. I'm going to be doing gold today, and it helps to get rid of that green before we do that. And then I'm just going to go right back to painting in some more larger shapes on my pumpkins. So I'm going to do the leaves after I double check to make sure I got everything completely coated for the flowers. But you can start mixing green and brown tones, or I've seen some really cool ones where they're using whites and golds for the leaves. So there's a lot of colors you can pick, but I would pick two main ones to use so that way you can quickly go around your pumpkin and just draw them in by doing like 2 parenthesis marks and then fill them in. So that way you can control how big or how long they're going to be. So you just want to go around your entire pumpkin, and there's plenty of negative space around, and to fill into some of those gaps with some leaves. And I don't do just the leaves, I just start with those before I do stems, because I usually have only 1 or 2 stems, and stems are just a grouping of leaves, so like more than 1 leaves, and those can be circular ones, round ones. You can also stipple in moss with like white and gray, and a minty tone would be really pretty. And so I can do a little bit of mossing and just tap in some lighter tones into it. It helps fill in a lot of the gaps between some of your flowers as well. And you just want to keep going around your pumpkin, filling in your negative space with leaves and stems and moss and a variety of areas, so that way every time you turn your pumpkin you can see something filling in the spaces. Give yourself some points of interest. And after I let that dry, what I'm going to do is start outlining with my black Sharpie, just putting some extra details on my leaves and in the centers of my flowers. If it's something like poppies or a flower with a dark center, you can do some line work on those as well, and also just use your Sharpie to do the stems too. So if you do have a Sharpie in another color, like a dark brown for example, or you want to use one of your metallics, you can substitute those in. And I'm also going to go ahead and use white as on the flowers to help draw in a guideline for the petals. So I'm just drawing in letter C's on my flowers to break up the petals, and then I'm drawing in my petals for my sunflowers as well. And then you just want to mix a little bit of your gold and coat your stem to let that dry to the side. And then you can mix yellow and white to fill in the petals of your sunflowers and let those dry too. And then after you have these guidelines of these letter C's or long parenthesis marks on your flowers, they help you paint in your petals and break up the space. So you just want to mix a light and dark tone for each of your flowers and just draw letter C's and like parenthesis mark brush strokes in order to give an abstracted look for each of your petals. You can also use some darker tones in the centers of your flowers to be more like zinnias or peonies or your roses of the deeper kind of variety. And you can also just go around tapping in your brush to add in some petals on the outer parts to break out from that circle shape. And this is the part where too you can start adding in some polka dots. And I just chose orange to incorporate a little bit of fall tones into this piece. And then just let that dry before you set that down or set it on top of a cup, so that way you can work on that. And you can stack these, you can leave just the drawing. So there's a lot of ways of approaching this. This is just one of the ways I like to do it for my dark abstracted floral pattern ones, and you're all done. So I hope you enjoy using these in your home decor, and I can't wait to see what you've created as well, and definitely look up some other ideas and techniques in order to pull off some painted pumpkins. Happy fall, everybody!